Hi everyone, this is AJ Grossman and welcome to my sweltering hot art studio here in South Florida. I must be crazy to be melting wax in this hot July day. But today I'm going to teach you how to make a color wheel using 4 colors from the RNF Encaustic pigments. One of the biggest questions I get when students come to the classroom is how do you mix color? How do you make color? Because they see our colors come like this. And it's hard, it's like a brick, so everybody doesn't understand how to mix it. Remember, encaustic is either melted or hardened. So when it's melted in its liquid form, it's equivalent to oil paint or acrylic paint or any paint. Remember, we don't go from wet to dry, we go from melted or wet or hot to cold and hardened. But by melting the colors, we're going to make a color wheel, and you're going to see how you can mix colors just like you would with any other medium. So for this exercise, we're only going to use 4 colors. So you need to have titanium white, alizarin crimson, cadmium yellow medium, and phthalo blue. You will also need, and I'm going to do mine on a illustration board. This is about an 8x10 illustration board. I'm going to link below all the resources and a template for you to use this. And I numbered mine with 12 being on the top, and I numbered it like a clock, only for easy reference of when I'm doing the demonstration of where to place the colors. So gather up those supplies, come back, and we'll start our color wheel. Fine point Hake brush, just because it's a small space. I'm not going to be fusing any of this because I'm really just doing this as an exercise in creating the color wheel. So the first thing is we want to make our primary colors. And these 3 colors are our primary colors. So we have our red, our yellow, and our blue. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to melt some of my red on my hot box. Dip in my brush. And I'm going to paint right in the 12 o'clock spot. And it is a little more difficult because it will absorb in. I may have to heat it up and fuse it. Oops. Remember, with encaustic, we can't use synthetic brushes. If you want to use a little pan on your hot box or your palette to melt the color, that's fine. But we're going to be mixing a lot of these colors, so I prefer to work right on my heated palette. We think with all this heat in my studio, everything would stay hot. It was just helping me move it around a little. So I actually took out my torch and I heated it. That's going to cool into place. I'm then going to continue with my yellow in spot number 4 and my blue in spot number 8. Spot number 4. I'm going to hit it with a little bit of heat just to spread the color. Very little. Remember, this is paper. I don't need that much. And now, oops, I'm going to use my blue in spot number 8. If you wanted to, you can use a board that you've prepared with beeswax on it as well. But I wanted to have my colors against a white background. I tend to paint on a white background, so it's going to help me see my color a little easier. The blue's being a little stubborn, so we're going to put some heat on it. Very light flame. Please remember also when you're working with encaustic to have proper ventilation. And that nothing flammable is in the area, like the paper towel that you can see that I have. I'm not going to worry about any of that. This is not a perfect painting. So I just made my red, my yellow, and my blue my primary colors on my color wheel. Okay, I'm now going to make my secondary colors. My secondary colors are mixing of the two colors together. So I'm going to mix 50% of my red and my yellow to get orange, 50% of my yellow and my blue to get green, and 50% of my blue and my red to get a deep violet. You can mix them right here on the palette, and that's why I left them like this. So if you can see my palette, I'll move the camera a little bit over. And I'm going to mix. So here's my red. So now I'm going to make my secondary color. I have my red, and I have my yellow. And it's about an even amount. If you need more, you'll make more. That red is very strong. So I just want a little bit more yellow. I tend to melt it on the side and I'll move it over. And I'm going to put that in spot number 2 on my color wheel. I don't know if you can see that. If it gets a little too dark, you may want to adjust it. But it's about a 50-50 mix. There you have it. I'm going to do the same thing now. I'm going to jump around. I'm going to take my blue, melt it down, and mix it with my yellow. To get your secondary. So when I mix my red and my yellow, I got my orange. When I mix my yellow and my blue, I got my green. And I mix my red and my blue, I got deep violet. And here it is on the color wheel. And when I learned how to paint in oil painting, we never used black. So when you put that violet down, it's going to be super, super dark for black. So I was taught how to paint in photorealism, and one of the things, we never used black. So you'll see that this color may be very dark, and that's okay. So now we're going to go back in and fill out the other spaces. And the other spaces are called tertiary colors. And sometimes you'll see a color wheel that has 1, or sometimes you'll see a color wheel that has 2 tertiary colors. And they're the mixing of the primary color and the secondary color. So we're going to go back on our palette, and we're going to mix our solid red with our orange and put it here. And then we're going to mix our orange with our yellow and put it here. And we're going to go around the whole color wheel. We're going to mix our yellow with our green and put it here, etc., to fill up the spots. So that's what this is going to look like here. So on my color wheel, I have my red and my orange. So I'm going to take a little bit of my red here. I'm going to take my brush that I used, which is almost like this one, and I'm going to start mixing it in. Sometimes what you're looking for, you may have to mix more color, is we're not looking for this true color or this true color. We're looking for something halfway in between. So you're going to have to get it with your eye. That color is looking a little too close to that color and that color. Well, actually, it's not so bad. You can test it on your thing. So I do actually have a good inter or tertiary color. So it's the in-between. Probably add just a tad of yellow. Remember, there is nothing exact in here. This is really just so you can learn how to mix your colors. You can see when I added that little bit how close it came to that. So as you can see, I picked up a little here. So remember, I'm using my Roland Hotbox as if I would a palette for my oil painting or any other palette that I'm using. A lot of times I'll leave my palette like this and let it cool down. I'll mix a lot of my colors or the colors that I plan on working with. And then I can just let it cool, and it's always here. And I can just keep on adding to it. So I tend to use my Hotbox as if I was using an artist's palette for oil. Right? The only thing different is I'm using Encaustic. So I'm going to fill in that spot here. And in that time of talking, like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. I do like to have them touch a little so I can see the difference in the color. and I just made my tertiary color, or tertiary for third. Now I'm going to make my color of this middle one and my yellow. So I'm going to put some yellow down here. Sometimes if this gets a little messy, you can use the other side of the, because I do have some green in there. Actually, I'm going to clean that off. I'll just make another spot. And I'm going to pull up this color here, because that was this color, and we're going to mix it in. The tertiary color should always have usually more of one color than the other. I've found that it works a little better that way. But I want something in between here and here. It's going to add a little bit more yellow. I'm going to add it in. Now, actually, I kind of really like that yellow being in South Florida. We see this yellow a lot down here. Color of sunshine, oranges, and University of Miami. Oh well. And now I have my tertiary color. So now my next is I'm going to mix my yellow and my green. So my primary and my secondary to fill in this color. So I'm going to let you continue on. I'm going to work here and I'll come back and meet up with you. Okay, so I've completed my outer ring of my color wheel. Don't worry, I know some of these colors look very close, but they're not. So I have, once again, at 12 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and 6 o'clock, I have my primary colors, my red, my yellow, and my blue, straight from like the tube. Then we made our secondary colors, which is our orange, our green, and our violet, by mixing our primaries together. You can see my palette's growing. Then we made our tertiary colors, or the third level colors, and that was mixing a primary color with a secondary color, and that's how we got all the shades in between. And nobody's palettes ever look the same when I teach this, so don't worry about it. In the next level here is another ring. I don't know if you could see it with lines. Oops, there it is on the camera, in here. And what we're going to do is, this is where the white comes into play. And we're going to mix a little bit of white with each of these corresponding colors, and that's going to create a tone. Usually you get a tone by eating a gray or black or white, but we're going to add white for this exercise, and we're going to get a second level. So just to show you what it looks like, I'm actually going to mix them right here with them. So this was my blue. We're going to go there. And I'm going to melt some white into it. I didn't clean my brush, which I should have. I'm going to add a little bit more white. Usually you'll see this will make something a little bit more pastel. So I'm going to take my blue, and where it corresponds on my palette, I'm going to lighten it up a bit more. Because I really want it to have, I want it to look like a different color. And now as you can see, it's actually a nice ultramarine looking blue. I'm going to put it right in under the primary blue that I used. I'll probably end up fusing this a little bit. You'll find that the blues, I find that some of the colors don't glide as well. Like I said, it's just the color wheel. I'm going to put some heat on that just to blend it. And I'm going to go through all my palette and add white to every one of my colors to create my tone. So you don't need to watch me do that, but you can practice it. And when we come back, we'll go on to the next layer in the color wheel.